Hey guys, this is Kate coming at you from San Francisco. I wanted to share my creative shift, my latest creative shift with you guys. It is this fun little statue. It's called the Bronco Buster by Frederick Remington. And I want to tell you what this statue has in common with our favorite mantra, hashtag West Coast, Best Coast. Anybody guess the answer? Because it's your favorite one. The best answer, propaganda. Yeah, it's all about propaganda. So like I said before, this is called Bronco Buster by Frederick Remington. If that sounds familiar, it's because his family created Remington rifles and made a lot of money doing that. He was an illustrator for a minute, but then he started getting into bronze statues, and the Bronco Buster was his first successful one. He made a couple of different versions. One of them is in the Oval Office. Here's a few pictures. My father actually has a small replica of the Bronco Buster on our bookshelf and had it growing up. So why is this sculpture such a big deal? It's just a guy on a horse, right? Well, to know that, we have to go back to a different Frederick. His name is Frederick Turner, and he is a historian. There he is. In 1893, he wrote an essay called The Significance of the Frontier in American History. But a better name for it, in my opinion, would be Old West Alternative Facts. That's because Turner was a revisionist, meaning he actually rewrote history. He changed how we perceive history. In his essay, he talks about manifest destiny and how the frontier was the last place that this was possible. He claims that the frontier makes true democracy and independent living, and that wasn't possible anymore in the East Coast. The timing of this statement was really important because industrialization was coming around, and it was kind of a farmers versus factory feeling at the time. Also, there was a lot more immigration happening in the United States. So this essay really bred ignorance towards industrialization and an isolationist view by building distrust. He was saying that, the cowboy is really the only virtuous American left, and the only way to escape the changes of the East Coast was to go to the frontier. But obviously now we know that this was only really true for English-speaking white males, because people of color or native tribesmen and women were in these stories were sidekicks at best, or invisible. It really did not mention any of the ridiculous amounts of violence or racism or all sorts of other awful things that they had to deal with. So when this essay came out, people loved it, especially white people. It really solidified this idea that the Old West was a romantic place and it had more virtue in it than the East Coast did. So Remington and a bunch of other artists supported this idea through their art with statues and illustrations and paintings. Also, tall tales started to become really popular of American folklore. John Henry, Casey Jones, Paul Bunyan, Calamity Jane, that was all becoming very popular. And also then Hollywood came along not too long after, and we started getting John Wayne movies and the Lone Ranger TV shows that put cowboys in this heroic position. That we're still fascinated by it, myself included. I love the idea of a cowboy. It's really only in the last 50 years or so that historians have started tearing down Turner's essay for the bullshit that it is, and have starting to tell the stories from both sides without a biased lens. Talking about genocide and ruining the land and exploiting workers and just straight up racism and plundering and just all the terrible things that happen. And they found that through this unbiased lens, there's really no narrative. There's no Old West narrative. As much as we like to simplify it, there is no white hat versus black hat story. As some of you who are Westworld fans have known, sometimes that can be the same person that wears both hats. And I think that's really important to remember when we look at this piece again. While we still love this idea of the romantic Old West, we got to be real about it and stop telling these one-dimensional stories.